From the moment I was old enough to understand what love was, I believed in one thing: stability. I grew up in a family where things were always in order: clear plans, predictable days, and a steady rhythm. I watched my parents work hard, side by side, building a life with unwavering consistency. And I thought that was the formula for happiness. The idea of anything unpredictable, anything that threatened that stability, scared me. It's not that I didn't believe in love, it was just that, for me, love had to come with a certain structure. It had to make sense. I was looking for a partner who would share my view of the world, someone who also craved predictability, the safety of routine. I wanted to build a life where everything made sense, where the unpredictable wasn't something I had to fight, but something I could control. But Mia, she was different. I met her in my early 30s, and she turned my world upside down in the best possible way. Free-spirited, adventurous, and always seeking the next adventure, Mia wasn't about stability. She was about discovery. She talked about traveling the world, chasing experiences, living without the constraints of schedules or plans. And at first I admired her. She brought a new color to my world, one I didn't know I was missing. But as time went on, that color felt like it was fading my reality into uncertainty. I found myself questioning if we could actually build something real together, something that lasted. How could we reconcile our visions of the future? Was love enough to bridge that gap between my dreams of a steady life and her desire for constant movement? I wasn't sure anymore. Mia wasn't like anyone I'd met before. From the moment we started talking, I felt like she was challenging everything I thought I knew about life and love. She wasn't interested in the right way to do things, or even the idea of a traditional future. She was passionate about living in the moment, about chasing dreams that seemed impossible to anyone else. I admired her for that at first. It was refreshing, like a breath of fresh air in a world I'd built that was suffocating me with its order and predictability. We'd spend hours talking about her travels, about the places she'd been, the people she'd met. Her stories were vibrant, full of excitement, and I couldn't help but feel drawn to her energy. She had this magnetic pull, and I found myself falling for her, bit by bit, but there was a part of me that started to fear her free spirit. As our relationship grew, I realized that while I enjoyed the adventure she brought into my life, I couldn't help but feel out of control. Where was the plan? Where was the foundation we were supposed to be building? She talked about moving to another city, leaving everything behind. And I began to question. Is this really the life I want? Was I ready for this kind of unpredictability, this kind of uncertainty? She was everything I wasn't, and I didn't know if I could keep up. Her life was full of spontaneity and new experiences, while mine was rooted in the idea of stability and security. In many ways, she felt like the missing piece to my puzzle, yet she also felt like a storm that could wipe everything I'd worked for away. That's when I started to feel the tension, the slow pull between two worlds. One that was grounded in certainty, and another that felt full of possibilities, but also full of risks. I never thought I'd be the one to make the choice. It felt so wrong, so final. But as much as I loved Mia, as much as she brought joy and excitement into my life, I couldn't ignore the growing weight of our differences. It became impossible to ignore that we were living in two different worlds. Her spontaneity, her desire for the unknown, was pulling her further away from the life I craved, a life built on plans, routine, and stability. At first, I tried to tell myself that we could make it work. I convinced myself that love would be enough to bridge the gap. But it wasn't. No matter how deeply I cared for her, no matter how much I wanted to see her light up with that adventurous spirit, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that we were on two different paths. Our dreams were pulling us in opposite directions. It came to a head one night, sitting in the quiet of our apartment. Mia was talking about her next big move, about packing up and traveling for months, possibly even years. It was her dream, one she had always talked about. But for me, it felt like the last straw. I wasn't ready for that kind of life. I wasn't ready to leave behind everything I had worked for. And more than that, I wasn't sure if I could keep up with her pace anymore. "Mark, I can't keep waiting for you to catch up to me," she said quietly, her voice soft but firm. And in that moment it hit me, this wasn't just about us anymore. This was about two different visions of the future that were no longer compatible. There was love, yes. But there was also the truth that sometimes love, as deep as it is, can't change the fundamental difference in two people's needs and wants. The next morning, I did it. I made the call. I told her it was over. I didn't want to lose her, but I knew I couldn't keep holding on to something that wasn't going to work. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It felt like my heart was breaking, but somewhere deep down, I knew it was the right choice. Sometimes, love is about letting go. After the breakup, I thought I would feel relief, but all I felt was emptiness. I had made the right decision, the one that made sense, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something crucial was missing. For a while, I tried to convince myself that the stability I craved was enough. That I'd finally made the tough choice that would allow me to move forward with my life. I threw myself into work, into the routine that had always comforted me. But every day felt like a battle against my own emotions. I'd see something, a cafe we'd visited together, or a park where we'd spent hours talking, and a wave of sadness would hit me. I missed her laughter, the way she could make even the most mundane moments feel special. I missed the spontaneous trips we'd taken, the way she'd wake me up at dawn to go on a hike, or how we'd get lost in new cities, just the two of us. But still, I held on to the belief that I had done the right thing. I had chosen stability. I had chosen my career, my future. But in the silence of my apartment, when the distractions faded away, I couldn't escape the truth. Without Mia, my world felt smaller. Her absence was louder than any of the successes I had achieved since we parted ways. I realized then that stability, true stability, wasn't just about routine. It was about having someone to share it with. It was about love. And without love, nothing else really mattered. The emptiness I felt wasn't a sign that I had made the wrong choice. It was a sign that I had ignored the part of me that craved more than just predictability. I was learning that no amount of success or stability could fill the void that love had once filled. But at the time, I was too afraid to admit it. Too proud to acknowledge that I had made a mistake. Weeks passed, but the feeling of emptiness didn't subside. In fact, it only grew louder, echoing in my mind every time I tried to focus on my work or my daily routine. I thought the decision would get easier with time, that I would grow used to the idea of life without Mia. But every day felt the same, unremarkable, monotonous. I had traded the excitement of love for the safety of routine, but that safety started to feel like a cage. I spent more time reflecting on our relationship, trying to understand where I had gone wrong. I realized that I had built my life around the idea of control over my career, control over my routine, control over my future. But in doing so, I had sacrificed the unpredictability and passion that Mia had brought into my life. Her spontaneity had scared me, but it had also sparked a joy in me that I hadn't felt in years. As I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by the quiet hum of my well-ordered life, I started to wonder, was this really what I wanted? Was it worth living a life that, although predictable, felt devoid of the kind of love that had once made everything feel alive? I remembered the joy I'd felt in her presence, the way she could make even the smallest moments feel like an adventure. And I realized then that the life I had thought I wanted, one of stability and control, wasn't truly fulfilling without love. Without the unpredictable magic she brought to my life, I was only going through the motions. I had always thought that love was about finding someone who fit neatly into my world. But now, I was beginning to understand that love was about being willing to let go of control. It was about embracing the messiness, the uncertainty. It was about finding someone who could shake you out of your routine and make you see the world through a different lens. And that person, Mia, was the one I had pushed away. One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I found myself staring at Mia's contact info. My finger hovered over her name, but I hesitated. What would I say to her? After all this time, what could I possibly say that would make things right? I had ended it with her, convinced that I needed control and stability, yet now, Everything felt upside down. I knew I'd made a mistake, but would she even want to hear from me after everything? The doubt weighed heavily on me. Maybe she had moved on. Maybe she didn't even think about me anymore. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't live with the regret of not at least trying. I had let fear rule my decisions before, but this time, I wasn't going to let it stop me from doing what felt right in my heart. I sat back and took a deep breath, my mind racing through all the ways this could go wrong. But then I remembered something Mia had told me once: you never know what might happen unless you take the risk. It hit me like a wave. Maybe love wasn't about playing it safe. Maybe love was about stepping into the unknown, even if it meant facing the possibility of failure. I had already lost her once. Could I really live with myself if I didn't at least try to make it right? Without overthinking it anymore, I pressed call. The phone rang a few times before I heard her voice on the other end. That familiar, warm voice I hadn't heard in so long. Mia? I said, my heart pounding. Mark? She responded, sounding both surprised and cautious. I made a mistake, I said, my words tumbling out before I could stop them. I miss you. I need you in my life. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, like she was processing my words. I miss you too, she finally said, her voice soft but steady. But why now? Why didn't you realize this sooner? And with those words, I realized how much time I had wasted. But at that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that I had reached out. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like there might be a chance for something real. After that first call, things between Mia and me weren't magically fixed. It wasn't as if all the years of hurt and uncertainty just vanished in an instant. But there was something real, something genuine about the way we started talking again. We took things slow, really slow. We spent hours catching up, reminiscing about the small moments that made our relationship unique. We laughed about things that felt insignificant at the time but had become part of our shared history. Mia had changed, and so had I. But one thing remained the same: the spark between us. It was still there, quietly waiting for us to recognize it. We'd meet for coffee, and the conversations that had once flowed so easily now felt deeper, more meaningful. We talked about what went wrong, about the fears we hadn't shared with each other before. And for the first time, I understood her desire to live in the moment, to embrace life's unpredictability. She wasn't running away from something, she was running towards something bigger than herself. And I started to see the beauty in that. But it wasn't just about understanding her. It was about understanding myself. I had spent so long holding on to the idea of stability and control, thinking that it was the only way to build a successful future. But as I spent more time with Mia, I realized that love wasn't about controlling the future. It was about living fully in the present. It was about embracing the unknown together, not knowing exactly what tomorrow would bring but trusting that it would be worth it, as long as we were in it together. One evening, as we walked through the park, our hands brushed, and that spark from before came back. The connection was unmistakable. I had missed her more than I had even allowed myself to admit. And in that moment I knew, this was the woman I wanted to build my life with. She wasn't just a part of my past, she was the future I had been too afraid to pursue. But now, I was ready. Ready to let go of my fears, to embrace the unpredictability of love, and to take the next step with her. It wasn't until one quiet evening, as we sat in a cozy corner of a small cafe, that the full weight of our decision hit me. Mia and I had spent months rebuilding our connection, taking baby steps to regain trust and intimacy. But this evening felt different. There was a calm certainty in the air, something unspoken but understood. We were ready. Ready to step forward together, without the fear of failure, without the uncertainty that had once held us back. You know, Mia said, her voice soft but clear, we've been through so much, but I think that's what makes us stronger. What we have is worth fighting for, don't you think? I looked at her, seeing not just the woman I had once loved, but the woman who had helped me become better. The woman who had shown me what it meant to live fully, to embrace the unknown with someone by your side, I do, I said, my voice steady with conviction. I've learned that stability isn't about controlling everything. It's about trust. It's about knowing that, no matter what happens, we'll face it together. Mia smiled, the warmth of her smile making me feel like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Exactly? We can't predict the future, but we can choose who we want to face it with. And with that simple truth, I knew that we had come full circle. I had once believed that I had to control every aspect of my life, that I needed to be in charge of everything to feel secure. But Mia had shown me that the true strength of a relationship isn't in the predictability, it's in the trust you build with each other. The unpredictability, the unknown, that's where the real adventure is. That night, as we walked home hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for so long. The future didn't seem so daunting anymore. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And that was enough. Together, we had learned that love wasn't about avoiding uncertainty, it was about embracing it. And now, we were ready to face whatever came our way, as long as we had each other.